Christina Crawford is here. Christina Crawford is Joan Crawford's daughter and is the author of a book about which millions of people, literally millions of people, are talking. It's titled Mommie Dearest, and it is an unflattering portrait of one of America's most beloved, popular movie stars, your mother, Joan, who was given to really erratic and rather antisocial behavior behind closed doors, away from the public. Let me just try and characterize what I sense from the book. She could become a very violent person. She slapped you often. She made you eat the raw portions of the meat that was served, and as a child you just hated it. You would eat the burnt ends around the edge and leave the red pieces on the plate because it literally made you gag.
That's right.
When you failed to eat that meat, she put it in the refrigerator and forced you to eat it the following morning for breakfast.
That's right.
When you didn't eat it the following morning, what happened?
It was put back in the refrigerator and I got it for lunch. And then dinner. And then breakfast again.
The following day?
Yes.
You peeled absent-mindedly as a 5-year-old, or maybe you were 7, the wallpaper off your bedroom wall in a certain area, and then you panicked when you realized what you had done and tried to paste it back, only succeeding in getting fingerprints and making it worse.
Terrible mess, yes.
As a result of that indiscretion, she did what?
She went to my closet, and I had a favorite yellow dress, and she took a pair of scissors and she cut it to shreds and then told me I had to wear it for a week, and if anybody asked me why I was in this condition, I was to tell them I didn't like pretty things.
So you were forced to actually meet outsiders wearing this tattered...
Oh, yes.
Was your underwear was visible too, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Later in... Your mother had a very unhappy childhood. I guess I'm as curious about your mother as I am about her relationship with you and about you. Let me just offer some observations here, Ms. Crawford. One is, this book is a desperate, it seems to be, I don't say desperate, say a terribly emotional cry from you, almost begging your mother to love you.
The book is written through the eyes of a child growing up. It's not written as an adult looking back. So that what happens, I think, is that the reader experiences, I hope the reader experiences what I experienced as a child. And yes, I spent most of my life trying to make sure that my mother loved me.
There were night raids in which she dragged you out of bed by your hair.
That's right.
She dragged you into your closet and began screaming as you were just waking up. I guess you probably thought you were in the middle of a nightmare.
I did, yes.
And she was screaming because there were wire hangers in your closet.
Yes, my mother had very strict rules. We sort of lived in a regimented fashion, as though we were in the army, I think. Everything had a prescribed time to be done, and there were rules for everything in its place, so to speak. Mm-hmm. If there was a minor infraction of those rules, particularly if she had been drinking, and particularly if it was late at night, something took hold of her. I don't know, her own terror, her own fear, and she would focus on those minor infractions and punish me brutally sometimes because of it.
I don't pretend to be the first person that's asked you this question, Ms. Crawford, but your mother had such a desperate need. I guess in this, the word is appropriate with this point, I think you'll agree. Your mother had a desperate need to present to the public as the classiest, the most beautiful, the youngest, the most intelligent, the most vibrant star in Hollywood, and all of those close to her, her family, her how many husbands? 3?
Well, actually 4.
4 husbands. This is our family, and aren't we wonderful? And you better smile when Photoplay took your picture if you knew what was good for you.
That's right.
So here was this enormous need for love and esteem. This book would just kill her if she was alive.
Well, that's probably true, because you see what happened was that the face of herself, the image of herself that she presented to the public was so very different than the way we lived privately that many people didn't know who this person was. It was as though they were almost 2 different people. Mm-hmm. So that you're right, I was a public person from the time I was a child, and that public image of me was a fantasy as well.
Yeah. Who or what, I hope you don't, I don't want this to sound like an angry question, because I have to say I was very absorbed by this book, and I believe everything in the book. I mean, I am not for a moment questioning the truthfulness. In fact, your candor is very painful in this book. Who is served by this book?
I tell you quite frankly, I think the book is much more universal than just a story about my mother and myself, our relationship set in the background of Hollywood. From what I have understood from traveling around the country, as my husband and I have been doing now, this book touches many people's lives. People have said to me, if you change the names and the extraordinary setting, you've written my story, and I never thought anybody would understand. I never thought that there was anybody out there that I could share this with. I thought this was my own private nightmare that I had to keep a secret, and that's exactly how I felt all my life. I tried to tell the truth, nobody would believe me. I tried to get help, nobody would help me.
This has been good for you then, hasn't it, emotionally? Is this cathartic?
A lot of people have asked that question. I think that if the book itself had been written as a catharsis, I couldn't have written it. I couldn't have dealt with everything about my life in that compressed period of time if it hadn't been for the fact that I had been trying to deal with my life in some positive fashion for many, many years.
Is that visual ready, Ron? You were the only member of the family who agreed to view your mother's body prior to cremation.
When she was dead, yes, that's right.
In fact, you make the ironic point that the funeral director seemed to be rather pleased that somebody was going to see the wonderful work he did with the body.
That's correct.
So, in this awkward way that so many millions of us have had to sleepwalk through this nightmare of dealing with the funeral director and the cosmetics and the after and the embalming and all, and isn't she wonderful and doesn't she look nice and all those inane things that people say at wakes, you said, yes, I'll go. And you went to the basement of the funeral home and your mother was lying on a table.
Yes.
You describe her as looking very frail.
She was.
Very thin, but somehow attractive, even in death.
Well, her face was still her face, yes.
And here's what you said to yourself as you looked at your mother's body. I know you're not really here with me anymore, Mother. I know your soul is gone already. I just want to tell you that I love you, that I forgive you. You know I forgave you long ago. We had so much pain together, you and I, but now, Mother, God has set us both free. God has set you free to begin another journey. I pray the next one has less anguish. God has set us free. Mommie dearest, go in peace. Goodbye, Mother, goodbye. And I love you. Now, following that very poignant mental or silent prayer that you offered for your mother, it wasn't long after that that you discovered that she left you purposely and with a final slap in the face out of her will.
It was one of the great ironies of my life, yes.
Irony would not be the word I would use. Now, this doesn't make me right, okay. But you had to be angered by that.
I was shocked. I was
you weren't angry?
Shocked. Not initially, no, because at first it was very difficult for me to understand. I don't think that anybody who has ever been through anything like that can possibly say that you really understand what's going on inside of yourself. There are emotions tumbling over one another so fast that it's very difficult to sort them out. But I really believe that my mother and I had come to peace with each other, and it was quite obvious by that at least one of us had not.
Okay, what's the line in the will? I'm not going to be able to find it. You must know it by heart.
I think it's for reasons which are best known to them or well known to them.
In other words, your mother said in the will, I leave nothing to my daughter Christina.
Yes.
Or to
Christopher, my brother.
For reasons which are best known to them.
Well known to them.
Well known to them.
Yes.
And you had to say why? You wanted to know, okay, let's assume the worst. You don't want to put me in your will. Why do you have to make this parting shot?
I didn't understand that, and I still don't understand that. And the will is being contested in the state of New York. My brother and I are contesting it, so that I'm not really at liberty to say a great deal about it because we will have to go to trial.
You also stand there incredulous as you read this document, which had been written about a year prior to her death.
That's right.
So it was written at a time when you thought you had some reconciliation with your mother.
That's right.
And you speculate in your book that here is your mother in death, reaching out of the grave and slapping you one more time.
That's right. That's right. It was very disturbing, very upsetting, and particularly because I felt that, as I say in the book, that if it were simple disinheritance, there was another way to go about it. I felt that my reputation, my life, was in question.
Now, this analysis and a dime will not get you a cup of coffee in the 70s, but please allow me ask you to comment on that. An amateur analyst will be tempted to conclude that if your mother reached from the grave to slap you by leaving you out of the will, you have returned the indignity with this public disclosure of her indiscretion.
There have been people who have said that, yes, and I think it's no secret that the book is very controversial, that I have become a very controversial person. My feeling is, and the reaction has been, that when people have read the book, when they've read the whole book, when the book is able to stand for itself, they haven't asked the question. And that's what I hope for, that the book will touch people in such a way that they will have a better understanding about their own lives. We were public people and under public scrutiny, but there are millions of people who live with what I lived with, and nobody seems to be interested in their story.
Mm-hmm. You also say that your mother's, that we are all of us reflections of the mirror offered to us by our parents or by those to whom we become attached as children, and that reflection is often distorted.
Yes, particularly I think I've spoken to a number of people who work in the field of child abuse who are experts. I'm not, but they say that children are so malleable. They want so much to please. They want so much for their parents to love them, and particularly the abused child who gets such a distorted image of themselves. In other words, if mommy and daddy beat me and I don't know what I've done wrong, there must be something bad about me. There must be something intrinsically wrong with me. And so the child becomes very guilty, and that becomes like a vicious cycle. The harder they try, the less they succeed. And so particularly, I think, in the field of child abuse, it's important to understand that the child keeps working harder for that parent's love and gets less and less, so that they grow up into adulthood having this image of themselves as a mirror of what they see from their parents. It's very distorted, very distorted.
How are you doing? You look happy. You have a happy marriage.
Yes, I do. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky.
How long did it take you to get on your feet from what had to be you had to feel awful by the time you were 18 years old going out into the world?
Much younger than that. There were times when I was around 15, 16 when I didn't think I had the will to live anymore. I honestly thought I was going to die.
How old were you when your mother last slapped you in the face?
Oh, I guess I was about probably 15, 16 years old.
I was rather surprised that there was not a more vigorous attempt in the book to explain your mother's behavior through her own loveless childhood.
It's touched on in the book. I have to explain also that my mother wouldn't talk about her past. She wouldn't tell us what had happened to her, so that the little information I had to put together like pieces in a puzzle. And the stories changed from time to time, so that I put everything in the book that she told me, everything that I knew about.
But is it possible that your mother behaved this way? Well, I don't mean to say we're all robots, but I wonder if you had been raised the way your mother had been raised. She lost her parents early, her father deserted her. I mean, she had a father who just took off, didn't come home. Then another man entered her mother's life, and she became attached to him, and he bailed out.
You know what you're saying? I did have that same life. Very similar.
But,
very similar.
Okay, well, my question is, if you had been raised as your mother had been raised, do you think you probably would have knocked your kids around too?
I pray to God I wouldn't, but I think that you have to make some conscious choices. And I think that you have to understand that if you've led that kind of life, you may need professional help. You may not be able to stop that kind of behavior pattern by yourself. I went and got professional help, and I hope that other people will have the courage to do the same.
Okay, let me just take a quick call here, if we may. Is the caller there?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm deeply disturbed and unhappy about this book. Millions of people in this country revere Joan Crawford, and this book is, I just don't know what to say about it. I would like to know why the book wasn't written before her mother died, first of all, and why did she put the title of the book, Mommie Dearest? There's a great deal of animosity in the title of this book. Why not Mother Dearest?
You were a fan of Miss Crawford?
Yes, I am. And I'm very upset by this.
May I ask you just a couple of questions?
Yes.
Why should the lie be perpetuated?
What do you mean?
Well, why should we be deceived
What she says is the truth. Miss Crawford isn't here any longer to deny any of this.
Oh, so you don't think it's true?
No, I don't.
You don't think that her daughter was hit over the head with a can of Bonami that sprayed all over her?
Well, that's a possibility. Mothers do get mad. I mean, her mother could have done something like that once and regretted it all her life, you know.
There's a passage in the book wherein Joan Crawford cut all the roses in the backyard in the middle of the night.
Rose garden, isn't it?
She also sawed down a fruit tree.
Well, that's her fruit tree, isn't it? I mean, I've done things like that. I have been mad, and the roses weren't taken care of by the children or something, and I've said, well, if you don't want to take care of the garden, then we'll get rid of the garden. They had a pony, and I said, well, if you won't take care of the pony, we'll get rid of the pony. I mean, mothers do that. That doesn't make you bad. I don't see why that should be traumatic.
Christina Crawford commenting.
Well, I first of all, I want to say that there is a difference between disciplining your children and abusing your children. It's a very fine line for many people, but it's something that I think that it's absolutely necessary to address ourselves to. We've had a philosophy, I think, for many years that children belong to their parents, that they are extensions of their parents, and that the parents have the right to do anything they please. And I think we have to rethink that. I think for both the parent and the child, it is vitally important to understand both people.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, we have...
Let me, you haven't read the book.
No, I've been reading the excerpts in either Inquirer or The Star. And each time I read them, I get more crazy. I mean...
All right, I know. Okay, I must break.
Well, may I just say one more thing?
I don't think you're surprised.
Hello, Mommie Dearest. And what did she do that her mother cut her off from the funds?
All right, the one thing I'd like to say to you is that you're really at a disadvantage asking these questions because you haven't read the book. And I think that...
Well, my friends haven't. They're as upset as I am.
Well, the thing is, I think if you read the entire book, you will understand some of the answers to your questions.
All right, I do beg your pardon and ask that you stay with us for the entire program. It's up to you.
Mommie Dearest. Why Mommie Dearest?
Mommie Dearest was the way she signed her letters.
Oh, I'm sure. Mommie Dearest. All right, okay. You'll buy it, I won't.
We're with Christina Crawford, and we hope you'll join us.
It seems to me that writing such a book would only increase guilt feelings and seem like a retaliation, something that I would feel guilty about.
In other words, you'd want to forget it.
Right.
Can you, though?
I never could if the whole world knew it.
In other words, you'd be embarrassed that everybody knew it.
That's right.
You'd
I
want to
think
keep
there's some things that are too
Isn't it better, though, to get it out? I mean, if you hold it in, it's going to
There's
come out.
always a few close friends you could tell without telling the world. That would be the way I'd feel about it.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think telling the truth is difficult under any circumstances, but I think what I said earlier was that basically I was a public person from the time I was about 2 years old, so that a lot of my life was already public information, and it was a fantasy. It had nothing to do with reality, so that what I did was tell my story and take the right to tell my story for myself.
You know, when my kids were young, I can remember whenever I introduced them to the priest or my boss or somebody that I wanted to impress, I looked at him as if to say, don't pick your nose, you know. I mean, I think, don't we all do that? It sounds to me like you had a enormously exaggerated sense of that with your mother.
Well, I think that it was exaggerated perhaps by the fact that we were both public people, so that we were not private people to begin with.
It was. Didn't you really resent that being trotted out in your little pinafore all the time?
A child only knows their own world. You don't have much to compare it to. So that I didn't really realize that the rest of the world lived very differently than we did until I was much older, 8, 9, 10 years old, when I got into school and saw other people and heard how other children lived.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ms. Crawford, you were talking about other people relating to you of a story that they've tried to tell or a cry they've come out with. Is this book something that you had thought about for a long time that you'd wanted to do and at some point had the ability to put it down on paper?
Well, I thought about it on several different occasions at various times in my life, but I didn't feel that I had the personal perspective to write the book. And also, I didn't feel that the relationship with my mother, which is a focal point of the book, had in any way concluded or resolved itself.
Your mother was in love with Clark Gable. And you suggest that he was only one of two men that she loved?
Well, I think there were probably 2 or 3 men that she was unable to dominate, so that she had great respect for them, and I think a lifelong love for them, for some of those very reasons.
Why do you think your mother knocked you around like that? Why do you think she did that? You admit she loved you.
Yes. And so
you know your mother loved you.
That's right.
I don't know how you know, but I'll take your word for it. You know, it's hard to see that through this kind of
I know it is. I know it is. But that's probably one of the most difficult things to understand about this book. You see, it would have been much easier, perhaps, if I could have said at any given point in my life, that's it, I can't take any more and I'm leaving. And a lot of people have asked me why I didn't do that. That was simply my choice. My brother had some different choices. He tried to leave. But those were my choices, and that's the way I dealt with it.
You're at peace with the book, and did you expect this kind of attention? This is a national incident, this book.
Yes, it is. I have been told that there has never been a book like this book, and it is touching people's lives in a way that was beyond anything that I had imagined, because I think it is written through the eyes of a child, so that what happens is people actually have an experience when they're reading this book, and they feel some of the helplessness that the child feels. They feel some of the frustrations that a child feels, and I think maybe for the first time as adults they are able to look at some of the things that happened in their own lives. Now, if people are not used to doing that, that's going to upset them a lot.
Yeah. You wonder how many doors you've opened for this.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
It's just the beginning, yes.
Who else is going to write a book about Mommy or Daddy?
Well, who else is going to start dealing with their lives? Who else is going to start having some insight into their own problems that they think are perhaps only personal? Who else is going to have the courage to go and ask for help? How many children are going to be spared? How many parents are going to rethink their own behavior and understand that the phenomenon is that most parents who are abusive were themselves abused, and they need help, they need understanding, they need the very things they're trying to get from their children, and their children can't give them. They're asking from the wrong people.
You had a fallopian cyst, a growth tumor, and you were really very ill. You thought you were going to die.
Yes, I did.
And at the time you were on Secret Storm, the CBS soap opera. And obviously however they do, temporarily wrote you out of the script. Your mother replaced you.
Yes.
And you thought that was what?
Well, first of all, I was in the hospital. I'd had an emergency operation, and I was only in a semi-conscious state. I was extremely ill when I found out that my mother had offered to replace me. In fact, some of your audience may remember that. I was barely able to understand what was going to happen at that particular point, but it was extraordinary because I was a woman at that time in my late 20s, and she was a woman in her early 60s. But she had watched me every single day that I had been on the soap opera, whether she was traveling or whether she was at home. And we had discussed my work and that part, so she felt that she had a kinship with it, if you can understand that. But it was very difficult for her, and I think it showed.
Well, it was not only difficult. You watched in horror as your mother...
I was in the hospital. Yes.
You were in the hospital, and up on the screen, I suppose, in the wall, like in hospitals, your mother came onto the screen as an actress playing your part in Secret Storm, and you sat there, lie there in horror because your mother was drunk.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
The book is titled Mommie Dearest, and we'll be back in just a moment. Christina Crawford is on the line. Hi. Is the caller there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
When I was a teenager, friends of ours had a motel that was near Drury Lane. And when Miss Crawford was staying at this motel, I had to call after that other woman called and said she couldn't believe anything in that book. We were at poolside, and she came out, and we naturally got excited. There were a lot of stars that stayed there, and they were all very nice to us.
Okay, we have very little time, okay? You'll get to your point.
Very nasty to us and treated us like dirt, and we found out she was nasty to everyone at that motel. Nothing was good enough for her, and she was never happy. Mm-hmm. So I can believe everything that was in that book. It can't be a lie.
your mother was, the problem is your mother, like everybody, was not always nasty, right?
No, everybody has two sides to them, and I think that's, in the book, those are the loving moments. Those are the moments that we shared together, and as a public person, my mother was capable of not only extraordinary friendship, but also great generosity and works of charity, but there were two different people. There was the public woman, and then there was the private woman.
Mm-hmm. I thank you for calling. Yes. Hang on just a moment. Let me just think. Yes.
Ms. Crawford, I understand your mother also has adopted 3 other children besides yourself.
That's right.
Has she abused all 4 of her children?
No,
or are
only
you the
2
only
of
one?
us. Only 2 of us.
Is there a reason why just the 2 of you and not the other 2? Or?
Well, I don't know. Those reasons are hard to understand, but I do think that it had something to do with the fact that her life changed quite a bit after she adopted my sisters. They started boarding school very young, and also by the time they were 7, my mother had remarried, and her life had changed radically. She moved to the East, and she had a new career, and I think she had resolved some of those problems.
I'd like to know what your mother's friends think of this book.
I haven't heard from all of them, needless to say. I have seen quotes that have been attributed to some of them. I think the ones that knew her best understand the book best because they saw some of that for themselves. I think other people, quite honestly, are upset that I wrote the book.
Yes.
Miss Crawford, if your life was so bad, why didn't you leave when you got older?
I tried to once. I tried to run away once. I didn't get very far. My brother tried to run away many times, and he was not successful. Our feeling was that the world in which we lived in was totally controlled by my mother. That was the impression that we had, and that there was no place for us to go. We had no relatives, and there were no authorities we could turn to.
Yeah.
Miss Crawford, do you think the fact that your mother drank too much had anything to do with the way she abused her children?
Yes, I do.
But alcoholism came later.
It got worse later on, yes.
Christine, you seem like a pretty together person, and I'm wondering if your brother was abused as much as you were. How has his life turned out for him?
Well, I think my brother in some ways had an even more difficult time than I did because, of course, he was going to grow into a man and he had no father. So I think he's done a wonderful job with his life. I'm very proud of him and I love him very much.
What's he doing now?
He's a private person. He's married. He has a job. He has a family.
That's great.
Yes.
Yes, Miss Crawford. I wanted to ask you about your brother. When he had the first child, didn't he come to the house to show it to your mother and she refused to look at it?
That's right.
And wasn't he strapped in his crib for many years after he was adopted?
That's right.
He was strapped in his crib or he was strapped in bed.
Every night, yes.
With a.
It was like a harness. It was made out of canvas, and he was tied down to the bed so he couldn't get up.
Yes.
What were your sisters' reactions to this book, if they didn't go through this?
Their experience of childhood was very different. First of all, there's 8 years difference in age between us, so that by the time I was, say, 10 years old, they were only 2. I went to boarding school at 10, and they, I think, had a very different experience of childhood. They didn't experience the same thing. So I think in some ways it's difficult for them to understand what they never lived through.
Do they believe it?
I think so.
Do you have any idea what your mother meant when she said, for reasons that are well known to them? I leave them out of my will. For reasons that are well known to them.
Well, there are many possible answers to that. I think it was something that my mother held in her own mind. And further than that, I'm just not at liberty to discuss it because we are contesting the will.
I guess there's a certain amount of guilt that everyone feels when a loved one dies. You know, if it's an uncle, there was a time when you were a kid when you didn't want to play Chinese checkers with them. You know, I mean, everybody suffers. You must have had your own share, I assume, of little bitty guilt, huh? Or not?
Well, I tried to think of that a lot when my mother died, and I can only say that I was very grateful because to the very best of my ability, I had done everything I could.
You did not see her, however, for a protracted period of time prior to her death.
That's right. She lived in New York, and she didn't travel very much in those days. And in fact, the last several years of her life, she barely left her own apartment. I was living in California, and in the process of trying to change my entire life, I went back to school.
You had gone through a divorce, a painful divorce.
Yes, that's right. And I was, quite frankly, totally caught up in my own life and trying to do something else with it.
So the distance then between your last personal encounter with your mother and her death was more than a year, 2 years?
Yes, it was.
About 2 years.
We were in contact with one another, and she knew all the details of my life. It's just that we didn't see each other.
Mm-hmm. And the reason you didn't is both professional. You were in the West Coast, she was on the East Coast. You were dealing with your own pain and trying to figure out who you were.
That's right.
And what, you didn't feel up to, presumably these encounters would have been painful for you anyway, huh?
Well, also, quite frankly, I just simply didn't have the money to make long trips. Most of the money that I had was going for my tuition. I was getting a master's degree at the time.
Was there any time during the last 2 years when your mother tried to, you never call and do the guilt thing on you, or?
No, I don't know a great deal about the last several years of my mother's life because she became, from what I understand, very reclusive. She didn't see her personal friends to any great extent, and I believe she was quite ill.
We're with over here, Ms. Crawford.
I would like to know, do Joan Crawford have any natural children of her own?
No.
No.
All were adopted.
And what age did she decide to write the book, Miss Crawford? Miss Christina Crawford.
I was 38.
Yes.
Your story seems like such a tragic one. Do you think that you could relive it through a 4-part miniseries, or if you were approached by Joseph A. Levine to do a movie or something like that?
The rights have been sold to Paramount and Frankie Bonds.
Will you be starring in it?
No.
Did any of your mother's husbands try to help you when they saw what was going on?
My mother was only married for a brief time when I was a young child, for about 2 years, and not again until I was 15 years old. So there were no men there. No.
As a mother, I think it's wonderful that you have shown such love for your mother, and good for you. Go ahead and write about her.
Thank you.
We enjoyed reading it.
Thank you.
Yes.
If you didn't see your mother the last several years of her life, at what point did you feel that you were reconciled with her?
Both before, when I was very close to her, when I lived in New York, and during all those years, because we were in constant communication, even though she was in New York and I was in Los Angeles.
Your mother seemed like she had two different personalities within her. Did she ever try to have any analysis or try to get help?
No, as a matter of fact, she categorically refused any help.
She was a Christian Scientist, and the closest she came to a shrink would have been her teacher. Is that how the Christian Science faith identifies
reader,
a person?
Yes, practitioner.
Reader.
Being adopted, did you ever search for your biological parents?
I saw the papers, the legal papers, and I felt that when I saw them, my biological mother was very, very young, and I felt that if she felt the need to go on with her own life without me, I'd just as soon leave it that way.
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to say, as a public health nurse, it's been my observation that the overprivileged children have been victims of child abuse as well as the disadvantaged. And I feel that you're opening up a nest of worms to show this major social ill of our society, that we must work for child abuse. And I wanted to ask you, Christine, if you would be willing to work for the child abuse program.
Of course. I've been approached in Los Angeles and in several other parts of the country. I am not an expert. You people, and I think you know what an incredible job you're beginning to do, are the experts, but I will do everything I can.
Yes. Do your sisters feel that you and your brother should be included in this bill? Are they sympathetic in your efforts to contest it?
I would like to be able to answer your question, and I'm sorry I can't, because we are contesting the will, and I have to leave that unanswered. I'm sorry.
Oh, now, see, I was going to ask another question, because according to what I read, they only were left a small sum according to her estate.
Quite a bit. Was the bulk of it left to charity?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You went to one of the points you make is that the funeral was impersonal. Is that the word?
Well, there was a funeral in New York that was more a memorial service. Then that was very private and very personal. Then there was a more public memorial service in New York and a very public memorial service in Los Angeles.
Is it your view, as a result of the exposure that you've had and coming now, there will be people who will come up to you after this show probably and privately say, "Wait till I tell you what happened to me"?
Well, I think it's vitally important that people understand that now there are places to go and get help, because I hope that nobody will have to live through the kind of private nightmare that I did. There are places to get help. There are Parents Anonymous, there are social service agencies, and I hope that if people become aware of that, there are child abuse hotlines, maybe they'll begin to understand that there is a place to go for help.
More importantly, there are people, millions of people, that must be wandering around with this terrible pain and guilt in their souls and not able to get it out or talk about it.
The astonishing thing is that the latest figures that I heard from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare are that at any given time in this country there are 1 million children suffering from child abuse.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to just read this paragraph here. Do you mind?
Go ahead.
The morning of May 10th, 1977, only one woman was with Mother. She arrived in the morning to relieve the other woman who had stayed the night. She realized that Mother had been through a very bad night, but was surprised at the clarity with which she spoke. There were only 2 of them in the room when the end finally came. The woman, realizing there was nothing more she could do, began praying. At first the prayers were silent, but as she realized how close the end really was, her prayers became audible. She was praying aloud, and Mother heard the words. My mother raised her head. The last coherent words from her mouth were, "Damn it, don't you dare ask God to help me." A few minutes later, Mother was dead. She really had awful, awful pain. Did you know how bad her pain was prior to researching for this book? Obviously, you interviewed the woman who was with her.
I didn't interview her. She volunteered the information.
We're in Chicago with Christina Crawford, and we'll be back in a moment.
I want to know if Christine's a Christian.
Oh, definitely.
You are. And her mother practiced the Christian Science faith.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know what your mother died of.
The official cause of death was coronary arrest.
How old was she?
I believe she was 72 or 73 years old.
She lied about her birth date. That was one of the...
Many people do.
That's true. But 1904 was her birth date, and she tried to make it 1904.
That's what my grandmother told me, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I was wondering if you maintained a diary while you were a youngster to remember these things, or it's just so vivid in your mind?
Some of the memories are so vivid that I will never forget them. Some of them I had kept a diary.
Yes, I'd like to know, can you attribute anybody in your life for helping you out a lot through your emotional problems?
My husband sitting in the audience right there.
May we ask David to stand, if you will, please? Thank you.
Ms. Crawford, what kind of relationship did you have with your sisters when you were young and now since you're grown?
I was the eldest child, so I think I had a rather classic experience of being the oldest one in the family who took care of a lot of things for them and tried to help them through their own growing years. Yes.
Ms. Crawford, after you moved out of your mother's home, did you ever talk to her about how she treated you?
My mother had a rather extraordinary trait in that she never talked about the past, so it was difficult to talk about those kinds of things if somebody isn't going to speak to you about them. So we very rarely talked about the past.
You must at least be curious to know why she was so desperately interested in giving you a lesson. If you destroyed the wallpaper, then she was going to destroy your property, and you were going to feel the humiliation of people as they came in the house and saw your tattered dress, and therefore you would never again destroy wallpaper. Where did she get this absolute, rigid, desperate need for an obedient child?
I have absolutely no idea.
Yes. How many years did it take you through therapy to get the way you are now?
Well, to some extent, I think a lot of my adult life has been involved in therapy, but I was officially or formally in therapy for 3 years.
Christine, did your mother regiment her life the way she tried to regiment yours?
Absolutely. Absolutely, down to the very last detail.
Yes.
What's Christina's reaction to Joan Crawford's parents?
My grandmother?
Yes.
My grandmother I loved very much. She was a very elderly woman by the time I knew her, and unfortunately she and my mother had a very bad relationship, and my grandmother was eventually banished from our home. She never ate a meal with us, she never swam in our pool, she was never there on holidays.
Christine, I want to tell you that I'm in the same boat that you were in, and I try to help my parents as much as I can. And did all the things that you try to do, I try to do, and which I couldn't do anything about it. But at the end, I still loved her and still loved my parents.
So you understand?
Yes, and I'm grateful to my husband, too, that he was always sticking with me like your husband has stuck with you.
Thank you.
What would you change? What would you change if you could get your mother back? I mean, you've got to feel, well, maybe it was good that you didn't go to see her. I guess I'm projecting.
You're asking me what I would change for my mother?
I guess in your own behavior, if any.
Well, I don't know. Hindsight is, like Monday morning quarterbacking, but I don't know what I would do. You can say, oh, I would have done this differently, or I would have done that differently, but for my mother, if I could have given her a gift, it would have been the gift of understanding of herself.
You had to accompany her to Carmel, where you had a residence, apparently.
We rented.
You stayed in a hotel?
In the summers, yes.
Oh, cottage. It was a cottage deal.
Yes.
And on one occasion, you accompanied her to Carmel, where she had a boyfriend, and you were obliged to refer to the boyfriends as uncle.
Yes.
You had about 6 uncles.
Well, she had about 6 boyfriends.
Yes. But you share with us in the book the fact that she went to Carmel and you met Uncle Ben or whatever it was, and then she went to San Francisco and you met Uncle Harry.
Yes.
So as a child, you were exposed to to a number of people.
Yes.
You were also, a mother was never ready. Whenever the beau came, the suitor called, she was always in her underwear, not prepared to come downstairs.
Yes, I was very embarrassed.
And part of your responsibility was to mix a drink for these.
Yes, I was a bartender at about the age of 9.
And you enjoyed really mixing them a stiff one.
Well, children survive in whatever way they can, and I guess that was one of my ways of getting back. Yes.
Did your perception of your mother's many boyfriends, did you know that she was intimate with all these uncles?
Not in the sense that we would know as adults. A child only understands bits and pieces of what's going on around them. So I saw the provocative behavior, but I don't think I was aware of the entire picture. No.
One more question. Now, when the Hollywood community had this big memorial celebration down memory lane, Joan Crawford thing, and John Wayne and George Cukor and all the biggest names in Hollywood were there, they were a very impersonal bunch, you thought.
Yes, it was a rather extraordinary evening. I had been invited with my husband and stepson, and we did go. And I reported it as I saw it happen, and there was a lot of very peculiar behavior, I thought.
Peculiar, meaning they didn't...
Well, it was a public tribute. It was television, cameras and all that sort of thing. And I had this sense that it was more like a premiere than a memorial, so that it was difficult to kind of adjust to what was going on.
And you were never even introduced?
No, I was not.
You stood up with the category of friends and relatives?
Friends and others.
Friends and others.
There was no category for relatives.
We'll be back in just a moment. Mommie Dearest is the story of a little girl who tried very hard to get the love of her mother and occasionally succeeded. But she also took, it's clear, a lot of abuse and wondered why and was bewildered and saddened by the fact that your mother apparently went to the grave with a lot of pain and anger that had not resolved itself. Mommie Dearest, its title. Many thanks to you, Christina Crawford. Much happiness to you and to David. And to you, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
On a recent Donahue program, a woman complained that her husband left her after she put him through medical school. Now he steps forward to tell his side of the story. Next on Donahue.